everyone, and welcome to another episode of Voices of Hult. Today, I am really excited because we are continuing with our series for Dummies, and we have a very special episode with a very special interviewee. We're giving you guys the tool for business analytics for dummies. A little bit of a crash course, business analytics 101, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is to give you the pros and cons, the things you should know and that I should know because I don't really know about it, but I am really intrigued. And I think this is going to be a really fun episode because we have a really fun interviewee that has a spark that I love when we have this kind of interviewee. So without further ado, first, our co-host Joanna, as always. Hi, Joe.
Hey, everyone. I'm so excited for this episode, honestly.
Me too. And then our amazing interviewer, Professor Anusha.
Thank you guys for having me here. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you for being with us.
But before we dive into like the business analytics aspect, just like could you tell us a little bit like how are you related to Hult? Like what are you doing here?
Absolutely. So I started with Hult in 2023, the spring semester. Mostly I'm involved with the BBA program, which is business analytics and specifically the business analytics major. I was involved with building the entire curriculum, and basically what I'm going to say is if you take a band course, you're definitely going to see me, at least in the Boston campus. So that's just a little bit about me. I've been here for about, a year and a few months.
Cool. That's really cool.
Ooh, that's good. So now you know why is she an expert into this topic and why she can give us this crash course of BA 101.
Exactly. So let's get to it. Like, what is business analytics, and like,
boom.
why should I care about it? Honestly,
Give it to us.
First, like, what is it?
Absolutely. Okay, so I think two parts to it. Or you said, what is it, and why should you care about it? So let me ask the what is it. The what is it is the simplest thing possible. The way that I put it, when I'm introducing the major or when I tell people what I'm doing is using mathematical techniques or technology to make money for a business, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a technical field, but you're using technical methods to make money for the business. Why is it important? Because businesses, their goal is to make money. So that's basically what
Profit, girly, profit.
Exactly.
We're all into it. That's the first thing they teach you at business school. You know, when you get here in the intro week, the thing that they tell you is like, what is business? And most of the time, us as students, we say, a way to make money. And they're like, no, everybody can make money. We have to make profits.
Exactly.
We have to make profits. Like, that's the thing about a business. So that's a way of making profits through mathematical skills, which sounds really cool. And I like when it's a little bit simplified because a lot of us are like, what is this? This sounds like business analytics. Okay, analyzing of businesses, but what do I have to analysis? So I really like those terms. So a lot of people, including me, used to confuse computer science with business analytics, especially when choosing a major here and you're like between computer science and business analytics and you're like, I want to code or I want to do something that has to do with technology and I like numbers. So what's the difference between one another? And if you could please give us that.
Absolutely. The funniest thing is you mentioned that a lot of people confuse the both of them. And I think that could potentially be a little bit of my fault at Hult because I teach both courses. I teach computer science and I teach business analytics. So I think when they see the face, they're like, oh, this is all tech and math. But it is. It's true. One of the ways that I can differentiate between them is, let me tell you my story of how I started. So I started off as a computer science major. That was my undergraduate degree. It started off computer science. I absolutely loved it. The idea of getting into computer science for me was to basically build new things. Like, that's the goal of anything. And you're using technology and all of these wonderful coding languages like Python, Java, whatever, name it, right? To build something like an app or build a software that's a working model, which is great. Everybody can build things, as you said. But how do we know if that is actually making money for us, right? That is the biggest question. I can build like 100 things, but if not one of it is making money, what is the point of building 100 things?
For fun, maybe.
For
Maybe
fun, absolutely.
Maybe not for your business.
Not
But
for your
I was
business.
going to ask you, because you said it's so like closely related to money, but can business analytics at any point not be related to money? Like, can it be like to make something more efficient. I guess
Absolutely.
that leads to profit anyways, but
Absolutely. So the idea is to just figure out the gaps that something that you built cannot figure out for you. So let's say I build an app and I want to know if that app is good or bad. The idea is to figure out if it's good, if it's bad, how can I make it better? And the goal is not always money, right? It could be something like, improving the customer experience, which in turn comes back to
I
money.
feel like it always comes back to money.
Exactly.
I remember the example when we were doing the pre-interview. You mentioned the example of Instagram Reels. If you could have said it to our watchers and listeners, because I know that was the example that got me to understand everything, especially this big difference that we're all the time like, what's the difference between computer science and band? Like, and that example was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, so think about this, right? Instagram is an application. The people who are making this application are going to be your software developers, software engineers, all of that cool stuff. But they're the ones who are just basically building it. And to figure out whatever they're building, to figure out whatever new, I want to say, features are on the application, you need some sort of data behind it. And your data is going to be driven through mathematical techniques. And that is exactly what BAN is, right? So think about Instagram, and let's take the example of Reels. Reels was a new feature that was added, I think, about 2 years ago. It's been a while. I think during COVID is when the Reels feature was added. So as a software engineer, what you're doing is you're actually building the icon to go ahead and click on the Reels. Now, to know how many people are clicking on the Reels, how many people are actually engaging with it, how many people are watching the Reel completely, all of that is your data points. And all of that is business analytics to figure out if it's making money, if people are clicking on it, and if they're clicking on it, are they staying? If they're not clicking on it, why are they not staying? Answering all of those questions. That is what.
So I love this because it shows that business analytics background doesn't necessarily has to do everything with technology. It can be plays into any industry. You can work in the industry of healthcare and work at a big hospital corporation and be a business analytics major and just analyze like their system, how it works, their patients, what's working, what's not working, what features are working, what's not working, without necessarily having to do anything with tech. Because what I used to be scared about is that I am really bad at coding. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a technological person. I am a people person, you know.
Need to know how to code.
And that was the thing that most surprised me when I was talking to Professor Anusha here. And it was, I don't need to know how to code in order to be a business analytics major or to have anything to do with BAN, because I'm not a computer science major. You know, they built stuff. We just analyze numbers out of that stuff that was built and, you know, try to improve it or give certain decisions in order to improve those things. So that's really nice, and I feel like that's something that people should know more about, especially when choosing that major, that if you're like me, we're scared that, hey, I have no background in coding or I just don't like it, and I'm not good at it. Should I take BAN? And the answer is yes.
Absolutely, because it has nothing to do with coding. One of the things that we actually do in this class is we use ChatGPT. Again, ChatGPT is a tool that was built by software engineers, but then who's using it? Companies to make money, right? That's the idea. So we actually use ChatGPT for the most part to generate our code. The idea is you want to understand if you're able to figure out what the code is doing, and that's about it. You don't need to write the code by yourself.
Oh,
perfect.
wow, really? So that's the like weird limits. Like that's all you need to know for business analytics. Like you don't know.
That's it.
Oh.
All that you do is you take your code and then you add like flavors to it and you add toppings to it to get the desired visualization. That's it.
But I guess you still need to know like some of like the basics just
Very
to
basic things.
know what you can do.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah, but you don't have to be good at it like I thought. Like, you know, you have to be a coder in order to do it. You don't have to at all.
All that you need to know is what the code is doing.
Yeah. Like to understand it, because there's no point into trying to improve something that you have no idea what it is.
Exactly.
So you have what it is and you're like, okay, these are the improvements that we could make based on I know what it is, even though I can't necessarily build it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. And then also, like as you said, like you talked a little bit about data, and like that's how data analytics, business analytics, and also that data analytics and business analytics. What's the difference?
I will say that they're used interchangeably. So right now, I think the biggest difference that I want to make is computer science is a lot more building stuff, a lot more software engineering. Business analytics is adding that layer of figuring out if it's going to help someone or not. And again, tied to making money. business analytics and computer science, that's the difference. Data analytics is how do you make these decisions, right? You're going to use data. So they're kind of used interchangeably, where it's like data analytics is a little less focused on building the mathematical technique. Sorry, it's more focused on building the mathematical techniques to come up with the result. Business analytics is more focused on the business side and telling the business what's going to generate revenue for you.
Yeah, which is
So they're pretty much interchangeable, I would say so.
and I feel like business analytics is a little bit more relevant for us here at a business school.
Absolutely.
But going back to like the data part, because both of it is about like collecting data and seeing what you can do with data. Like that's really cool, and I feel like that's so relevant to today's society too.
In general.
Yeah, like we
That's
need
what
data
I
for
love
everything.
about I feel intrigued from business analytics. It's the same thing that we take management for, and it's because it's broad. Like tomorrow, if I want to work in HR, I'm definitely going to use business analytics in CNB, for example. If I want to work in the healthcare industry, I'm going to use it in big pharma. If I want to be, I don't know, a voice actor, I can definitely use the business analytics background. And you're like, what are you going to analyze? Oh, I'm a company, I'm a product as a voice actor. So I got to analyze that data, that what profits am I making, or
like the market, the
what
stage of
contracts and
or
market,
something.
like everything that you do in today's society requires you to have a little bit of background in business analytics.
Absolutely. You can't run away from numbers because that's what people trust. Right?
Exactly.
And if you're positioning that numbers in a way that are able to communicate a story for a business and make money, people love that.
Numbers are impactful. Let's be honest. There's a big difference when somebody says, oh, a big percentage of people that graduate from Hult get a job. That's really different than saying a 95% of graduates from Hult get a job the minute they graduate. You're like, 95%, that's a lot, because big percentage can be 60, can be 65, 85. Something that is more than 50% most of the time can be big percentage. But knowing a big number like 95 out of 100, it's a lot. Numbers are impactful, and you have to know numbers. I understand that not everybody's good at numbers, but 5 plus 5 is always going to be 10. And if you know those basic things, you're just going to thrive in life. Because if you're not good at numbers, you're not good at anything in life, you know?
And honestly, that's one aspect to it. The other aspect that I feel is about actually structuring the way that you think. That is so important, because how are you going to approach a problem if you don't really know what is the thought process behind it?
Yeah.
So I think business analytics kind of gives everyone a framework of thinking, because you're essentially trying to solve the problem, but you're breaking it down into smaller chunks, adding a mathematical understanding to it, just because it'll make more sense to people who don't understand. Just, I could write an essay, but if I can give you like one percentage, like 95, that would just make it so much easier.
Mm-hmm. There you go, guys. Like, she's giving you straight up reasons why you should go to BAN. Like,
Yes,
she's literally saying you're going to use it for everything in your life. If you don't, like, literally everything in your life, it's going to have some BAN background, which is like really important.
Background, right? I'm just gonna
And I love that part of the thinking process, because a lot of us just think that business analytics is only numbers, but it's so much more. It's making decisions, it's the thinking process. Same thing we were saying in the past episode about the financial industry. A lot of people just think the financials are accounting. It's money in, money out, which is not true. It's so much more. It's a science of making decisions based on that money in, money out. But it's making the decisions. It's the same with business analytics, based on the numbers, the data that you're giving. Then you are processing those decisions. It's a thought process. It's so much more than just a mathematical equation, because it's a thought process that it's behind it. It's a science.
Absolutely. 100% agreed. And I think BAN is used so much in the finance industry. That's my background specifically. I worked in investment banking and also within product analytics. And every decision is, okay, what are the numbers? Is this going to be helpful? Why is it going to be helpful? And those are all the questions that you ask to guide your thinking. And then you go ahead and use math to help you support your results or reject them. It could go either way.
But I thought you've worked with data for a long time, but like what made you go like
into this
transition
field?
Transition from the like finance and more into this too. Like what is it with this that you think is fun?
That's a great question. I think the fact that it is such a versatile field, right? You could use you could use ban in investment banking, you could use ban in healthcare, you can use ban in education, so on and so forth. I think just the fact of the potential and the lucrative nature of ban, irrespective of the industry that you work in, you're always going to have those quantitative techniques, right? So I think just for me personally, just looking at where you could take this framework and this approach of figuring out how to think and applying it to different industries.
Perfect. Versatility.
Yeah, that's
Versatility and innovation. Those are the keys for everything that has to do with today's businesses. So I feel like we've give you a pretty great crash course on ban. I am really excited for you guys to see and listen to this episode because I feel like there's a lot of questions that were answered right there about what ban really is and why is it changing the world and why are band majors making so much money, because let's be honest, we want to make a lot of money when we grow up, and that's why we are studying.
We want to have fun too.
Exactly.
It is fun.
So telling us this stuff about band gives you a chance to know a little bit more about it, and just take it. Just take the course. Come on. Okay, so to finish up, we always do a question from our previous guest, and I'm gonna give the torch to Jo so she can tell you the question.
Oh my god. Okay. So the question from a previous guest that we have for you is that what would you tell your 18-year-old self to avoid and why?
Dun, dun, dun.
I would tell my 18-year-old self to avoid, to avoid being afraid of numbers, because if you were afraid of numbers, you wouldn't be listening to me. If I was afraid of numbers, then I wouldn't be here talking about numbers. Yeah, but that's one thing. I think I would just say don't be rigid. I think when I was 18, I think I was very rigid on this is what I want, this is what I want. But I think having that sense of seeing that there are multiple perspectives to a similar approach, and I think that comes from my mathematical background, right? I'm like, there's just one answer, there cannot be multiple answers. But even when you go into your career, be open to learning. Don't be so rigid on this is what I want, and don't be afraid to take the unconventional path. Like, I think that's what I did right now. A lot of people, you see them going from I want to say academia to investment banking, right, afterwards. I think I made that switch a little bit early on in my career, which I think is, the idea of seeing how you can use the same framework everywhere else. So I think there is no set path and there's no reason to be rigid. Just be open to any opportunity and avoid being super rigid and take the unconventional path.
I find that fantastic because it just, life is not a straight line.
It absolutely is not. I never saw myself in education, but look at me. Here I am.
Thriving.
Yeah. Thank you for doing
So I wanted to say something that we skipped in the intro, and I think that's important to say when we're talking about any faculty about Hult. And it's the multicultural background of Professor Anusha, because let's be honest, she can actually feel more connected towards us because she's from all over the world, like most of us are. So if you could explain just a little bit before we close up on your cultural background.
Absolutely. So I actually moved to America. I don't know if you guys have picked it up by now, but I sound you can't place where I sound from. It's because I moved here for high school. I was born in India, raised in Dubai, and I came here about 10, 15 years ago. It's been a long time, and I think that aspect of, having this multicultural and being an international student and then kind of figuring your way out in a career path. Again, that's why I say, don't be rigid. Life is not a straight line.
Fantastic, connecting one thing to the other. So now it's our close up, and it's just your question for our next guest.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay. What is a class? I think I ask a lot of my fellow professors this. What is a class that you would take again if it wasn't offered for credit, or if it just, if you didn't have to get a grade?
So
what
just
is a
like as an elective.
as an elective, but it's supposed to be a class that you've taken before. So what is a class that you would take again? If you could erase your memory and retake a class, what would that be?
Ooh, I love that one. I love
It's a
that
qu-
one,
it's
actually.
I think a lot of my band students would say it's band because it's super eye-opening. You're like, oh, there's so much that can be done. For me, it was my introduction to machine learning course. So I just want to hear it from everyone else.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thank
I
you for
love
having me.
this. I think everybody's going to love this episode. This episode is really nice. And I hope you guys are enjoying our series for dummies. We're going to keep on spice things up a little with this kind of series because we feel like it's really nice and important, especially here when you're choosing your major or when you are thinking about coming to Hult and you're like, but what's Hult about? You know, what are they going to teach me? Those are the kind of things they're going to teach you here from these amazing professors that, you know, are young and multicultural just like you. So thank you.
Wow, what a slogan. Young and multicultural. Okay.
Just like you.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess that's true. But thank you so much. I feel like I've learned, and like especially your definition of business analytics, which was that using mathematics to do mathematical concepts to do money for your
To
business.
make money for business, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Amazing.
carry that with me every day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is so amazing. I am super happy. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
And
having
goodbye,
me.
guys.
Bye.
Everyone.